So the Oscars have now been and gone, and what an interesting year it was. Obviously there weren't loads of films out this year, so I was very interested going in to see what was going to be nominated, and the films that were nominated and even the films that won, there was nothing really super surprising or anything. This is actually the first year where I've watched every single film nominated for Best Picture, despite the fact some of them aren't even out in the UK yet. I had to find some ways to watch them, but I managed to watch everything, and I'm pretty happy that I managed to watch everything this year, even if I didn't love everything. Obviously, I haven't seen every single film nominated for every single award, but I thought I'd go through some of the categories, talk about the films I haven't talked about already on this channel, talk about what I think was snubbed and the films that I think really deserved the awards that they got, and just do a general overview of what I got out of the Oscars this year. So let's just talk about the granddaddy of all the awards, the Best Picture. Like I said, we're not going to talk about films that I've already talked about on this channel, so I'm not going to be talking about Mank or Sound of Metal because I've discussed them already, but I'll talk about the other films nominated for Best Picture and a few others on some of the other categories as well. So let's just start off with the film that of course won, Nomad Land, directed by Chloe Zhao. This was one of the last films that I watched that was nominated. In fact, I watched it the day of the Oscars, and I definitely enjoyed it, but I wouldn't say it's the best film that was nominated. Frances McDormand is fantastic in the film. I think she's really great. I love the way that Chloe Zhao brought in a lot of real life nomads to act in the film, and I think a lot of their performances and a lot of their dialogue is all improvised, and it does feel very lifelike. There's rarely a point where you feel like you're watching a proper drama, and there's a lot of points where it just feels like a straight documentary with Frances McDormand just there playing a character. And even then, her performance is so realistic, you kind of stop seeing Frances McDormand very early on and you just see the character that she plays. I think visually and tonally, I do like the film a lot. It has this very calm, slow and melancholic feel, but I think it's also quite beautiful in a way. But I feel like the film is just so slow moving that I found it kind of hard to really get super invested. That's not to say I think the film's boring or bad, because I really don't. I did really like this movie. It's an incredibly poetic and well-made movie, and I can definitely understand why it was nominated. I'm not sure I would say it was the best film of the year. I don't know if I think it was worthy of winning the award, but after watching it, I kind of gathered it probably would win, because it just seems like the sort of film that would win Best Picture. That, and it's loved by everyone, it seems. I think out of every film from 2020, this was the one that had the highest ranking on Metacritic, and I kind of get it, but also kind of don't, and I definitely would want to rewatch it at some point. I know in the UK it's being added to Disney Plus in the next couple weeks, and I'd love to watch it on there, and if it gets a theatrical release, maybe I'll see it there instead. I enjoyed this movie a lot. I didn't think it was amazing, but I did think it was a very well made and quite beautiful movie. I got a lot of Terrence Malick and Andrei Tarkovsky vibes from the general tone and a lot of the way the film is shot, and I did appreciate that a lot. I would still highly recommend this movie to anyone who's not watched it. It's very poetic and beautiful, even if I don't love it. And I'm going to give this one a 7 out of 10. Next we have The Father, directed by Florian Zeller. This is Florian Zeller's directorial debut and is based on his own play from 2012. The film basically follows Anthony Hopkins, who plays a character called Anthony, and his daughter Anne, played by Olivia Colman, as he suffers with dementia and kind of loses track of where things are. The film uses time in a very interesting and very heartbreaking way to just create this very disorienting feel and really putting you in the shoes of Anthony Hopkins' character. The portrayal of dementia and just the general feel of the film is incredibly hard to watch and incredibly powerful. Anthony Hopkins is incredible in the movie, and I think it might be one of the best performances of his entire career. The way he manages to completely capture all the mannerisms and speech patterns of someone who's mentally deteriorating is just insane. Watching him, he just was so incredibly real, and I was genuinely in awe watching him because he was just fantastic. The film reminds me a lot of the film Amour, directed by Michael Haneke, and that's a good thing because that's a very powerful movie. I don't think this film's anywhere near as depressing and dour as that film, but it's still a very powerful and heartbreaking movie to watch. It's a great portrait of this man who's losing his grip on reality. I think both Anthony Hopkins and Olivia Colman are really great. The writing is fantastic. The directing is really great. It's really annoying that this is the only film nominated for Best Picture that isn't getting a release at all anytime soon in the UK. It's getting released in June in the UK, which is a shame because obviously I would have loved to have seen it in the cinema, which obviously isn't a possibility right now, but I wanted to actually support the film and watch it before the Oscars in case it won, but they decided not to give us that option and make us wait like months after the Oscars happened, to the point where I feel like a lot of people are probably going to forget it exists, and I don't know if it will be quite as successful as it would have done if it came out on VOD now. And it's a shame because I think a lot of people are going to miss out on this really great movie because they forget it exists. I would highly recommend watching it when it comes out if it's not out where you are right now, and if you're impatient and want to watch it now, I wouldn't blame you because that's what I did. This is a really great, powerful movie, one of the best movies about growing old and kind of deteriorating that way I've ever seen, and I'm going to give this one an 8 out of 10. Next we have Judas and the Black Messiah, directed by Shaka King. This is a really great biopic about the betrayal of Fred Hampton, who was the chairman of the Illinois Black Panther Party in the 60s. The film kind of goes back and forth between him and the person who becomes an FBI informant, infiltrates the Black Panthers and leads to his assassination. And I think it's an incredibly well written, entertaining and eventually pretty dark movie. They do a great job of dramatizing this incredibly important part of human history and constantly condemning racial injustice and using it in an incredibly powerful and dark way. Both Daniel Kaluuya and Lakeith Stanfield are fantastic in the movie. I'm so glad that Daniel Kaluuya won the Best Supporting Actor Oscar because he was just great in this movie. Shaka King was actually a student at film school of Spike Lee's, and you can definitely tell that there's a big Spike Lee influence on the film, but I think he also does a great job of creating his own identity, taking influence from Spike Lee's style, bringing it in a little bit, but also doing his own unique thing. And I think it's a very well made, very well directed movie. If you haven't watched this film yet, then I cannot recommend it enough because it's just a very important movie and probably one of the best movies that have come out in 2021 so far. It's also probably one of the only films to come out worldwide in 2021 so far, to be fair. I really enjoyed this movie and I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. Next up we have Menari, directed by Lee Isaac Chung, which was probably my favorite film nominated for any of the awards, to be honest. This is a really sweet semi-autobiographical movie about a family of South Korean immigrants who try to make it in the rural United States and create their own farm and their own family there. The film is very intimate. There's very few outside characters apart from the family, and it does a great job of really making you feel like you're a part of them. The presentation of childhood is really authentic and feels like just real life childhood. The kids are all great in the movie, especially Alan Kim, who surprisingly does a fantastic job as a child actor. Steven Yeun is also fantastic in the film, and I'm really glad to see him doing great work. Although I was never a fan of The Walking Dead, I thought he was really good in that show, and I'm glad to see he's doing great stuff now. He was fantastic in the film Burning and obviously Bong Joon-ho's Okja, and he was fantastic in this movie as well. This is a very simple movie. There's not really a lot going on. It's a very tender portrait of family, and I think it's just very well written, beautifully shot, really well acted. Yoon Yoo-young, who won the Best Supporting Actress award, is also fantastic in the film, and I really loved her character. If you haven't seen this film yet, then I cannot recommend it enough because it's super sweet and just a beautiful movie. And I'm gonna give this one a 10 out of 10. It's possibly more gonna be a high 9 upon a second watching, but for now I really love this and I'm gonna give it a 10. 10. Next we have Promising Young Woman, directed by Emerald Fennell, which was actually the last film I watched before the Oscars. I actually watched it like a few hours before the ceremony started. This is a film starring Carey Mulligan, who plays a woman who's basically seeking to avenge the death of her best friend who was a rape victim. The film is a constant statement on rape culture and how a lot of men take advantage of women and don't really see any repercussions from it. It's obvious that this is a film with a lot to say, and I think for the most part it does a good job of saying that. The way it uses this comedic, almost B horror movie style is really good, but I do wish they maybe focused on it a little bit more. There's a lot of moments where you can tell they're like homaging 70s B-movie horror movies, like exploitation slasher movies and that sort of thing, and I really wish they leaned into that a little bit more, because I felt like that was some of the more interesting stuff in the film. The comedy I found very hit or miss. Some parts I did genuinely find funny, and other parts I felt like were the most obvious jokes you could possibly make in those situations. Like, there's just so many cliched comedy tropes that get thrown around throughout the film that I wasn't really a big fan of. Carey Mulligan is fantastic in this movie, and her performance was easily the best performance I've seen from her to date. I also did enjoy Bo Burnham, who wasn't in the film a lot, but I thought he did a good job considering he's not really an actor. But the biggest problem with the movie is easily the music choices, which are pretty terrible. There's some I don't mind, like I liked the inclusion of like a remix of Boys by Charlie XCX at the beginning. It's a little bit on the nose, but it's forgivable. And I thought the like orchestral creepy version of Toxic by Britney Spears was also a little bit on the nose and a little bit silly, but I thought it fit the tone of the film perfectly. But apart from that, there's like so many like super jarring music choices that were pretty hilarious and took me out of the film multiple times. The last half an hour is really great, and it's super dark but very well written. I wouldn't say any of it's like super unpredictable or surprising or anything, but I do think it's fairly smart. I like a lot of the visual style, I like a lot of the framing I think is very good. But apart from that, I wouldn't say this is like a super unique and original movie that I've never seen anything like before. Yeah, I don't think I've seen a film tackle this like topic in this way, but the styling and pacing and that sort of thing it's nothing super unique. As much as I did enjoy this movie, I would not say this is Best Picture worthy at all. I wouldn't say it was even worthy of being nominated. I don't dislike this movie at all. I do like it a lot. I just don't think it's quite as great as everyone seems to say it is. I definitely don't dislike it as much as YMS. That's something, I guess. I would recommend this movie if you like dark, very dark comedy thriller sort of stuff. It's very entertaining, sometimes funny, but sometimes not really so much. I'm not sure how I feel about a lot of the characters, but I do think the cast are really great, even if it basically is just nothing but Carey Mulligan by herself for the whole film. But I would recommend it if you haven't seen it, at least. I'm recording this bit a few days after the rest of the video, because the more and more I think about this film, the less I actually like it. Like, I don't know what it is about this film. I enjoyed it in the moment, but the more I think about it and more I break it down, the less I'm like, it's actually very good. So initially I think I had my rating at an 8, and yeah, I'm gonna give it a 6 now. It's good, but it's nothing amazing, nothing super original or unique. I doubt I'll ever watch it again, but it's entertaining for what it is. And the last film nominated for Best Picture is The Trial of the Chicago 7, directed by Aaron Sorkin. This was alright, I guess. It's a pretty average run-of-the-mill legal film. It's not bad. I did enjoy it. I think some of the acting's good. I think the writing from Aaron Sorkin is very good. I think visually it's very dull, and I don't think Aaron Sorkin is a great director. I do think the dramatization of this real life event can be a little bit heavy-handed and cheesy at points, especially when you get into the ending where there's a lot of stuff they changed and it was super cringe. But if you like just courtroom dramas like this, then I think you'd probably enjoy it. I would highly recommend watching the Small Axe film Mangrove instead, which I think like so many people are saying right now, but it does what this film does but so much better. So I think I'd give this a a 6 out of 10 maybe. I don't know, it's somewhere between a 5 and a 6. It's not bad, it's not great, it's alright. I would never watch it again. In fact, we reviewed it on my podcast, The Sunday Movie Marathon, not that long ago, and I don't think I actually rewatched it for that episode because I was like, I don't want to watch this again. It was like a fun one-time watch, but I don't think I'll get anything out of another watch. In fact, I think I'll like it even less. 5, 6-ish, it's alright, I guess. And of course, the other two films from Best Picture that I've already talked about on this channel were Mank and Sound of Metal, both of which I really loved. Mank was on my Best of 2020 video, and Sound of Metal was, I believe, in either the January or February film diary video that I've done, so go check out them to hear me talk about them more. Moving on to Best Animated Feature Film, there's only one of these films I've not watched, and that was Over the Moon, because it doesn't look very good. But I did watch every other one. Soul, Onward, and Wolfwalkers I've already talked about on this channel in multiple videos. Obviously, Soul and Wolfwalkers were on my Best of 2020 video, and Onward got his own dedicated review. So that leaves us with a Shaun the Sheep movie, Farmageddon. I find Aardman kind of hit and miss. I really love all of their shorts, especially all of the Wallace and Gromit stuff, but I find their movies can be quite hit or miss, to say the least. And by that I mean Chicken Run and the Wallace and Gromit movie were really good, and everything else has kind of been either mediocre or bad. Flushed Away kind of sucked. Arthur Christmas, actually, I really liked that film and I always forget it was by them. Early Man was awful. The Pirates, I don't really remember, but I actually really did like the Shaun the Sheep movie. I thought it was very sweet, had great animation. It was just a really warm, wholesome movie and a great continuation of the fantastic Shaun the Sheep series. So I was actually genuinely excited for Farmageddon, and yeah, I did not like this movie. Just like the first movie, this is very sweet and charming, but I also feel like it doesn't really have anything for people who aren't children. Like, I know this is a kids movie, but at least every other Aardman film I've seen so far has something that people who aren't kids will enjoy. And this film, I guess, has like all the sci-fi references, but they seem like so heavy-handed and unnecessary, and they just repeat so many of the same references over and over again. The animation is of course great, and yeah, it's a cute movie, but I just didn't really like it at all. Maybe one day I'll try and give it another go. I'd probably give this like a 5 out of 10. It's definitely one of the weakest films that were nominated for the Best Animated Award, though like I said, I haven't watched Over the Moon. We all knew it was going to be Soul at 1, so I'm not angry about that at all. I loved Soul. I also loved Wolfwalker, so I would have been happy with either of them. For Best International Feature Film, I wanted to watch all of these movies, but I never got around to it. I think a couple of them literally were released less than a week before the Oscars in the UK, so I didn't really get a chance to watch them, but I still will check them out at some point in the future. But the one film I did watch was Another Round, directed by Thomas Vinterberg. I've only watched 2 other Thomas Vinterberg movies so far, those being Festen and The Hunt, both of which I thought were really, really great. And Another Round I also loved. This of course is a film about a group of people who are kind of going through this midlife crisis and decide to experiment with this old saying that every human has a blood alcohol content that is 0.05 below what it should be. So they agree to set a number of rules where they make sure that their blood alcohol content is constantly above 0.05, but they can't drink after like 8 p.m. or something. So it's basically just a film about a group of alcoholics. I really love the way that Thomas Vinterberg doesn't shy away from presenting this story in a very high and happy way, but also presenting it in a very, very dark and low way. The directing is really great. The script is also fantastic. All of the acting I love. I didn't expect this film to be quite as funny as it was, but it was a really, really funny movie and a really depressing movie at some points as well. Thomas Vinterberg did a great job of balancing out the light and dark, and that's what I think makes the film just so interesting to watch and just so powerful. I really love this movie and I cannot recommend it enough if you've not watched it. Thomas Vinterberg is a great director, and I'm looking forward to checking out the rest of his filmography at some point in the future, and I'm gonna give this one a 9 out of 10. In terms of the best documentary film, I only actually watched 2, those being Crip Camp and Time. Crip Camp I've already talked about, it was on my best films of 2020 video, and Time I honestly keep forgetting I watched. It was alright. I'm not sure I got a lot out of it because, like I said, I completely keep forgetting I watched it. I didn't watch any of the shorts. I'm very upset that I'm Thinking of Ending Things, directed by Charlie Kaufman, was completely snubbed because I think it could have been nominated for Best Picture, Best Director, Best Screenplay, Best Editing, Best Cinematography, all the acting awards it could have been nominated for. I think that film is just so well done in every single way, and it's just a shame that the Oscars basically don't know any film that exists unless it gets campaigned for. So yeah, fuck the Oscars, fuck Netflix for not giving it the attention that it deserved and basically just pretending that it doesn't exist now. And that was my review of some of the films that were nominated and won the Oscars this year. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did enjoy it, maybe I'll do one of these every year, or maybe I won't. I guess we'll see. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.